That's right.
Yeah. They're 12-0. We're 9-1. So should be a good game.
We are live once again from the Rusty Keg Tavern here in Washington Courthouse on Columbus Avenue, and I want to invite you to stay with us throughout this hour, and we have a couple of special guests. First off, we're going to talk to Jeremy Yankee from the East Clinton Youth Football Program. I guess some would say the Pee Wee football program.
Right, that's what it's commonly known as, East Clinton Pee Wee football.
Jeremy Yankee is with us. And how did you get started in the coaching ranks?
Well, while I was in high school, I coached with Dennis Watson, who was the head coach at that time in the late 80s, and actually 1990 as well. And when I was 19 years old, he had decided he had had enough, and he just basically turned everything over to me. So I became the 5th head coach in our Pee Wee program's history in 1992. And this is my 21st season with the team as a head coach, and 23 years altogether as a coach. I played for the program in 1982 through 84 for John Stewart.
Okay.
And he was a great, wonderful man who was tragically killed my 6th grade year in a car accident. Mm-hmm. And Dennis took over for him at that point in 84, and then I took over in 92. And still with it today and still love it, and I've kind of just grown up with it, I guess.
One of the keys to any successful high school program is having a solid pipeline of young players coming into the program. So your job is critical as to developing these young players.
Definitely. I think the thing I really like about youth football is you get kids who've never played the game. Right. So if you teach them the right fundamentals the right way, then that's all they know. Mm-hmm. So, and any coach will tell you at any level, it doesn't matter if it's Pee Wee or professional, tackling and blocking are the two most important things of football. If you do those two things well and you don't make mistakes, you're a good football team at any level. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest part of our practice. Anyone that would watch us practice is probably surprised. We practice 2 hours when we practice 3 days a week. Of those 2 hours, only 20 minutes is spent in 11-on-11 drills. Mm-hmm. The rest of it is all individual drills, one-on-one stations. We're fortunate enough in our program, I have 9 assistant coaches. Mm-hmm. We only coach one side of the football. We have an offensive staff and a defensive staff. Okay. There are not many high school programs around that are even fortunate enough to do that, but we do that, and that's all our coaches do. And I coach the quarterbacks. I work with the young man that's our starting quarterback this year. That's all he plays is quarterback. Mm-hmm. So he's practicing it every day. Gunnar Niedover is his name. He's having a remarkable season. He's thrown 20 touchdown passes and only 1 interception.
Wow.
So we've got a tremendous passing game at the youth level, which is very unusual. Mm-hmm. Of those 20 touchdowns he's thrown, they've been to 7 different receivers. So we can throw to a lot of kids. We have a great running game as well. Mm-hmm. We only have 2 kids on our team that start both sides of the football. So our practices have become very competitive. Sure. There's kids at this point of the year are tired of going against one another, and they're getting. But it creates competition from within your program, and if you can compete hard during the week, it makes your games on the weekends seem sometimes easy.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that's the key to any successful program: blocking, tackling, dedication, discipline, and desire. If you can instill those things in kids, you're successful.
Build those fundamentals in from day one, and they'll carry them with them throughout their entire career.
Exactly right. Fundamentals is everything in football, because I'm biased, obviously. I love football. It's, to me, the most ultimate team sport. You don't have to be a great athlete to be a good football player. If you have the dedication and desire to become good in the heart and the mind, you can be a good player because there's always a spot for you.
Right.
Just play hard with your heart and your mind. You'll be a good football player.
All right. Well, let's go back and talk about your career. You mentioned some highlights and maybe 1 or 2 disappointments when you played, but you were a part of a couple of real good teams at East Clinton.
Well, yeah. Still to this day at East Clinton, there's only been 1 undefeated team in the high school history, and that was in 1989. I was fortunate enough to be a junior that year, and I started cornerback, and we did go 10-0. We won the Kenton Trace Conference. It was the only Kenton Trace Conference title that the school ever won in football. But unfortunately, this time of year, I always follow high school playoffs very well.
Sure.
And it still bothers me to this day to know that we missed the playoffs. Now, back then, each region only sent 4 teams to the playoffs. Today, they send 8. Well, we were the 5th seed. We missed it by half of a point.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it is. And had we been in any of the other 3 regions, we'd have been the 1 or the 2 seed. So for us to sit and watch, it really hurt me. We watched Wheelersburg, who came out of our region, go 14-0 and win the state title that year. And, we finished 10-0, and still to this day, I mean, we may have gotten beat in the first round. We may have won. We may have won a state title.
You'll never know.
I'll never know. I'll carry that to my grave, never knowing what we would have done. I never got an opportunity to play in the state playoffs, and it does bother me. It still does.
Well, I'm sure it would. Back in the 60s, we never had that opportunity because we were just starting football at East Clinton, and our friend Tom South was part of that team, and Phil Whittington, who's probably watching us in New York, was part of that, and some other guys. But we have built East Clinton has built football from not being a football school in the late 60s now to being a part of the SCOL and playing against the Clinton Massies and the Miami Trace. So it's a challenge to try to keep a program strong now.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot more competitive for our high school now than the Southern Buckeye Conference that we used to be in. And with the addition of Chillicothe and Wilmington coming into the SCOL, it's an uphill battle. It really is. But, you have to look no farther than the other side of the county at a school like Clinton Massey.
Right.
And if you go back to, the late 90s and 2000, they were no different than what East Clinton is today.
Right.
And I give a lot of credit to Coach McShirley and for the program that he has built, because the numbers that they get out and they sustain at that level. Like I said with our Pee Wee team, our practices become so competitive. It's the same thing with Clinton Massey. They are so competitive in their practices that come Friday nights, a lot of times they've already faced a tougher offense or defense on Tuesday and Wednesday in practice than they face on a Friday.
That's right.
And if you can build that into your program, that's how you become a state champion. That's what it takes. It takes those numbers and that dedication and discipline that Coach McShirley's instilled in his program. And East Clinton can do that, because, we're no different than they are. And I truly believe that we can become what they are. And that's what, when I talk to people at East Clinton, we talk about Clinton Massey and how they've just become this power. Well, it's all unfolded in the last 10 to 12 years.
Right.
And it's all because of the hard work that all those people in that community have put in. And my hat's off to them. I mean, they're our rival. I wish it were us.
Right. Absolutely.
But, hats off to them. And as I watched that game last year, I didn't get to go, but I watched it on television, that state championship game against St. Clairsville. I thought it was neat and awesome to watch a county team. I still couldn't bring myself to root for them.
No.
But it's pretty neat that they brought a state title back to Clinton County. It really is. It puts Clinton County on the map in high school sports. It really does. And like I said, my hat's off to them.
And it represents the SCOL well, too.
Very much so. And, I know when Massey took that opportunity to jump in the SCOL when it reformed 2003, 2004, somewhere along there, East Clinton had the same opportunity and didn't take it. And there were people at East Clinton that kind of scoffed at the idea of Clinton Massey going in, saying they can't compete. 8 years later, 9 years later, they've lost 2 games in the league and they've won a state title. So not only have they not competed, they've dominated.
Absolutely.
And they've left Miami Trace and other schools like that, and Hillsboro and Greenfield that are much bigger, thinking, wow, what do we have to do to compete with this smaller school now? So, I think East Clinton has a great opportunity with where they're at. If we can get to that level to where we are competing with those schools and win 7 games, 8 games, now we're a solid playoff team in Division 5. And unless we face a MAC school, I think we're more battle tested with any first round opponent in the playoffs, because if we can compete with the Clinton Massey, Miami Trace, Chillicothe, Washington Courthouse, and make the playoffs in D5, we're looking to make a good run. So that's why I think East Clinton has a good opportunity in the SCOL as it currently sits. I know it's a tough challenge, but you know what? Competition makes you better.
Absolutely. And as I've talked to Coach McShirley about this, as well as other coaches, it is that pipeline of youth players coming in. You develop the Dalton Floyds, and you the Snows and those guys, as you see them come through your youth program and develop into players for the varsity, you can see their development and know that they're going to be right there and be solid.
Well, definitely. And you mentioned Dalton Floyd and Clyde Snow. Both of them were starting quarterbacks for me and played for me for 3 years. Both remarkable young men. And they have that dedication and discipline and desire that I've talked about that it takes to become good. I mean, you look at Clyde and everyone says, well, he's undersized. The kid plays with more heart than anyone I've ever seen. And just remarkable, not only at football but at basketball as well. But you talk about those numbers, and we get the opportunity tonight to play Clinton Massey in youth football. They're 12-0. They won their conference, and we're currently 9-1. We won our conference. So at 6 o'clock tonight at East Clinton High School, we'll be getting an opportunity to play Clinton Massey. They filled a tremendous youth football program over there. They start at the 3rd grade level. We start at the 4th grade level with ours. But Clinton Massey will typically have about 100 boys in their youth football program, about 25 kids per class. This year with our program, we had 57 players out for 3 classes, so nearly 20 boys per class, which is remarkable. And that's one thing that, like I said, it all goes back to competing within your program. When I've got 18 6th graders this year, and I've got 19 5th graders this year. It really makes a competitive team. And we had a slip up last week against Wilmington. We got an opportunity to step out and play Wilmington. They beat us 22-12. They got a good program. And Clinton Massey beat Wilmington Wednesday night, so we're playing a round robin tournament. They beat them 32-24, and now we get the opportunity to play an undefeated Clinton Massey team tonight, and I love it. I love it. I love to play great competition, and after that, the week of Thanksgiving, we'll be taking off to play in Daytona Beach, Florida, in the National Youth Football Championships. And when you go there and play, you play the best across the country. And this will be our 8th trip down there. We started in 1997 going down. And we've won it one time, and that was when I had the great fortune of coaching Billy Blackburn.
Oh, yeah.
He was remarkable, and he was a 5th grader that year on that team, and we won the national championship, the 11-year-old heavy division. And, to compete at the national level in any sport is a great opportunity, and it's a wonderful opportunity. We're going to take 35 players with us down to Florida and get to play 2 games. I don't know who we'll play yet, but we play in the Daytona area. And for those young men to get that opportunity to compete against teams from across the country is remarkable because, we are small-town Ohio.
Sure.
But I've always believed, we can compete with anybody. I'll play anybody. Hey, we've went down and got our butt kicked, but we've went down and won. So I'm never afraid to play anyone. Well,
it's a great experience, as you say, for those young men to go down there and be in that highly competitive atmosphere, and it has to be a real learning tool for them to participate in that sort of competition.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is. And Sports Network International is who puts this on, and they were founded in 1972. I believe I'm correct on that, and that's when they started this thing. Sure. So it's been going on for a long time, and teams from across the nation, and even there's teams from Canada, and I know we were down there 2 years ago and played. There was a team out of Panama. So that, it's international now. But it is remarkable, and they look back and at the people who have came through and played in this, and gosh, I know Bubby Brister that used to quarterback the Steelers and some other teams. He's coached a team and brought them down there. Amon Green has played in this event, and Eric Crouch, who was a quarterback at Nebraska, he's played. And I know that goes on. Frank Gore is another one that played in this event. So, there's kids who have went on and have professional experience through this, but we see some great athletes. We really do. And we run into some very good teams down there. And 2 years ago, we went down and we lost both our games. One was to a team from Tennessee, and they had a running back we just couldn't stop. They beat us 32-6. And then we played Nelsonville York from Ohio. And we were very competitive with them. They beat us 25-21. So it was unfortunate we lost both games when we were down there, but I don't know who we'll play this time. You don't know till you get there, and then they tell you what division you're in, and here's your games, and here are your game sites. But it's truly remarkable. They run a cheerleading competition as well, and then they have a wonderful awards gala on Saturday night, the week of Thanksgiving, that closes all the ceremonies. And it's a huge arena. It seats about 10,000, and it's jam-packed from teams all across the country, and they hand out trophies. And it's I still get excited and get goosebumps, and this is my 8th time getting to do it. Just to take these kids down and just to see their eyes light up. And, we stay right on the beach in a hotel, and we're there for 6 days, and we have all our team meetings there. We have practices, and it's kind of like a college team getting to go to a bowl game in Florida. It's that experience that these kids get to take. And, for most of these kids, they're never even going to get to play college football, let alone get to experience it. So for them, I tell these parents it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I talk to people now who took their kids down 15 years ago, and they still say that was the greatest family vacation we ever took.
Right.
So it's neat for us to get to experience that. It really is.
Now, the program has to be able to raise funds to support that. How do you guys do that?
Wow, it's a big effort, as you can imagine. We take a charter bus, which is quite expensive. We got to pay for that bus. We got to pay for hotel rooms, pay for meals, and all that. The kids really they have their own goal that they set to raise their funds, and then the team has to raise funds as well. But currently, as we speak, at Kroger's in Wilmington, we are raffling off a car that was donated to us by MC Auto in Sabina. They donated a 2006 Chevy Cobalt. It's a used car, but we're selling raffle tickets there until 3 o'clock today. We'll be selling raffle tickets at our game tonight at East Clinton High School, and at halftime of that game, we'll be drawing the winner, and they win that ticket. They win that car. Each ticket's $25. And second prize is $500. So if anyone wants to get one of those tickets, you got till this evening to get that. And that's really been one of our big fundraising efforts. And we also, for years, have done $5 discount cards that you can save hundreds of dollars on in the Wilmington, Sabina, New Vienna area, and also Washington Courthouse. Those discount cards are $5 a piece, and they're good until next October. And you can restaurants all over, get 10% off, buy one, get one pizza free at pizza places, those type of things. So our Pee Wee players have those cards. Our coaches have those cards. We'll have them at our game tonight, and we'll have them all the way until we go to Florida, which is a week from Monday when we leave. So those $5 discount, for $5, you can buy one of those cards and really save yourself $100, $200 over the next year. So they're great, and they help us because all $5 goes right back to our program. So those are probably our two biggest fundraising efforts.
You've been in the youth program for a long time. Have you ever thought about moving up into a higher level of coaching, or are you really satisfied where you're at?
Well, I did take the opportunity in 1999 to go to Hillsboro High School, and I coached with my former high school coach, Herb Mahalik. I coached 1 year there. So I left the Pee Wee program for a year as a head coach, but I still stayed on as the team president, and Keith Taylor took over for me for that year. And I went to Hillsboro, and I had the opportunity to coach wide receivers. It was a great opportunity. I left after 1 year to come back to the Pee Wee program. I have had an opportunity to coach at junior high level multiple times, and it's something that I really have never had any desire to do at the junior high level. I would entertain the possibility of coaching at the high school level again, if it were the right opportunity. But I really love the Pee Wee program. It means a lot to me. It goes all the way back to when I played. Because when I played as a fourth grader in 1982, John Stewart had the program, and he was like a father to me. And it was like a father figure to me. And he died with like 2 games left in my 6th grade year in a car accident, and it really just crushed me. And that's why I've had such a desire to make our Pee Wee program the best it can be for so long. And I took over in '92, and that was our last losing season that we've had. We've had 21 straight winning seasons now.
Yeah.
And it's been remarkable. We've had a remarkable run, and in the last 19 years, we've won 11 league championships and competed nationally. So for like I said, small town Ohio, we've built a remarkable program, and that's due to the support that we've had with our parents, the number of kids that we had come out and stay with the program, and all the assistant coaches that I've had, because everyone gives me a lot of credit for what's been done, but I just play a small role in that, because I just coach the quarterbacks and I just coach the offense. And people say, well, what about your defense? And honestly, all I can tell you is we run a 5-3, and I don't know anything else about it, because honestly, I that's their job.
All right.
I turn it over to those guys, and I have a great defensive coordinator that I have the opportunity to be back with him this year, and Jeff Vanscoy.
Okay.
And him and I started working together in '92, and he went to the high school level in '95. He coached. He's been East Clinton's defensive coordinator at the high school level for about 15 years, and we had the opportunity to have him come back this year. And then I have another great defensive assistant coach in Daniel Day. He played for Coach McShirley at Clinton Massey.
Okay.
We've converted him to East Clinton.
There you go.
But it gives us a good knowledge from outside of our program, because if you can get people who came from other programs and have different ideas, that's great.
Yeah.
And he coaches our defensive backs, and he's actually married to my cousin, so I know him very well. He does a tremendous job. And then I have Lester Robinson and Zach Bozier that coach defense, and they both played for me. Mm-hmm. And Lester was actually on the 98 team when we won the national championship. And then on offense, I have Jim Vest, who coached a number of years at Greenfield Junior High, and he coaches our offensive line. And then Chris Breckel coaches our running backs, and he's a great offensive mind like myself. Him and I work together on the headsets during games, and he played high school football with me. I have DJ Henry that coaches our wide receivers, and he played at Wilmington High School. And then Donnie Eisen coached our tight ends, and he actually played for me as well. Mm-hmm. So what a wonderful staff. Yeah. There's guys on there that have a lot of experience, and we are fortunate to have that type of staff at the youth football level. We really are, because our kids get a great deal of knowledge.
Well, once again, the youth football and at any level or any high school supports the varsity level very well, and the more support that the youth program can provide for the varsity just enhances the entire program.
Well, definitely. That's the main things we try to send to our junior high program are number of kids. Mm-hmm. We try to get number of kids out. Kids that are fundamentally sound in blocking, and got a loud semi going by.
Yeah, you might have to go get a citation.
Right. Kids that are fundamentally sound in blocking and tackling. Because like I said, I don't care what level you're playing. If it's the NFL or Pee Wee football, blocking and tackling are two most important things. So we teach our kids that. That's what we stress in our program. Our offensive kids have to know how to block. Our defensive kids have to know how to tackle. Mm-hmm. And being sound in your stance and your starts. We just continuously drill those things, and that's what our practice consists of. Are just fundamentals, and that's really what we teach. And we only do, like I said, 20 minutes of 11 on 11.
Yeah.
Everything else is 7 on 7, 1-on-1, individual stuff, to teach the individual to become better, because in order to become a great program, the individual has to be better.
Right.
Yeah, and I know that's what Coach McShirley does at Clinton Massey, and has spent a great deal of time in teaching the individual to become better, and that's why they're state champions.
Right. And at your level with these players, it's the best time to teach fundamentals. You can't wait till they're in 7th, 8th, 9th grade. You've got to build it in from day one. Exactly.
That's exactly right. And that's why I say I like this level, because when they come to us as a 4th grader, and we have a good flag football system at East Clinton. It's 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade kids. They play flag, which just teaches them the basics, what offense is, what defense is, what a touchdown means. It doesn't teach them any of the tackling and the stances and the starches and the blocking. It just gets them to enjoy the game. And since we started that youth flag football program in 2003, it's retained our numbers. Kids don't quit now in our program. So, like this year, we started with 58 kids. I had 1 kid quit throughout the whole season. So, that's remarkable to hold that many kids throughout the year. But if I can instill proper fundamentals in those kids over a 3-year period, and I know we do, we send them to the junior high level, then they just need to further advance their playing ability, because the competition, as you go up each level, steps up. The game becomes faster. But, it all goes back to blocking and tackling. I truly believe that. And if that's what we teach our kids the right way, and that's all they know, they're pretty good football players. And that's why our program is always competitive. And, we've had a winner every year for, 20 straight seasons now.
Sure.
And it's not because we've had the best talent every year. It's just because we play hard. We've always competed for a league title. We haven't won them all, but we're competing for it.
Yeah.
We're right there in the mix every year. So.
And a lot of learning the best fundamentals can prevent injuries too.
You say that, and that's so true. This season, we've played 10 games. We've only lost 1 player out of 57 to an injury for any game, and he just broke his wrist. It was a slight break. He had to have it casted, and he missed 4 games, and he's back playing. So, if kids we always say low man wins, because it's so true. Whether you're blocking or tackling, if you're lower than your opponent, and that's what we teach, then
We're going to send Tom South out here to quiet the traffic down here in a minute.
It's pretty loud this morning out there. If you're the aggressor and you're the low man, you're more than likely not going to get injured. And as people come and watch our games, you see our opponents, not that we're trying to hurt our opponents, we're trying to be physical with them but not hurt them intentionally, but a game gets stopped because a lot of times our opponents, they're getting picked up off the field. We very rarely have to go out on the field and get a kid from injury because they're the aggressor, they're the low man, and they're the one hitting harder.
Right.
So if you're delivering the blow, you're not taking the blow, you're not getting hurt. So, and at the youth level, injuries are just not that prominent like you'd see at the high school level.
Sure.
Because the game is much more physical at that level.
Right.
Youth level, we play physical, but the level of impact is just not that great. So you don't see a lot of injuries. This concussion is becoming such an epidemic now.
Absolutely.
And over my 21 years with the Pee Wee program, I know of two concussions in 21 years. So you just don't see it, that much at the youth level. And we've had some injuries. We've had some kids with a broken leg and a few broken arms. I mean, it's just going to happen.
Right.
But very, very rarely do I see it at the youth level.
Well, I want to say best of luck against Clinton Massey tonight, and best of luck in Florida.
Well, thank you. We're going to need it. We got a challenge on our hands tonight. We've talked to our kids last night at a walkthrough practice. They know what they have to do. I feel confident we can win, but Clinton Massey has a great quarterback, and I said, hey, if you stop him, we win the game. If you don't, we lose the game. It's that simple. So It's all on our defense tonight. I'm putting the pressure. I'm putting the pressure on those guys. And once we go to Florida, anybody's guess. We could go down and win 2. We could go down and lose 2. The thing that makes me feel confident about playing down there, from my experience in the 7 times that we went before, if you can throw the ball, you compete nationally, because everyone's going to be able to stop the run, because teams are just tough. But we do have a quarterback that can throw. We got kids that can catch, so I feel like we do have a chance to compete. It's all divisional placement, whether we fall in that 11-year-old or that 12-year-old, and you just never know. You never know what you're going to get. They do a great job of matching teams up and placing them in the division, but we'll see. We'll probably open up play down there on Thanksgiving Day, and we'll see what happens. But thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak today.
Good.
It's remarkable, and anyone that's watching, you want to come out and watch a great Pee Wee football game, you're going to see 2 wonderful programs in Clinton Massey and East Clinton tonight at East Clinton High School at 6.
Well, Jeremy Yankee, thanks a lot for being here, and stick around. We'll have a nice little meal here going shortly, and always room for good food, right?
Definitely. That's one thing I am good at is eating. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, and we'll get our next guest on here in just a moment. We are live from a Rusty Keg. You get an applause, too. How about that? I never get applause. He never says anything to me like that, but I'm glad you're getting the applause and the all that. But we are live here at the Rusty Keg in Washington Courthouse, 1801 Columbus Avenue. If you're listening or watching and you want to come on out, we welcome you here. We have a very limited studio audience this morning, but we enjoy all the comments and all the folks that are watching. If you're watching and you know Jeremy, please let him know that you saw him on the SCOL Coaches Show here on GTVR.net, Global TV Radio. Got to get that in there. And we're going to get our next guest on. So thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
All right. All right. And we'll get our next guest on. He's sitting over here enjoying looks like a tall glass of ice water maybe, but he is from the Hillsboro High School. And your name?
Nick Fight.
Nick, welcome to the SCOL Coaches Show.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You are an athletic trainer at Hillsboro High School. Now, a lot of folks probably know a little bit about what an athletic trainer does, but explain what you do.
Sure. Well, I guess the biggest thing is, we try to take care of, in my position, the athletes as well as we can, preventing injuries and evaluating and diagnosing the injuries when they are injured, and then rehabbing and trying to get those athletes back to their competition as quick and as safely as we can.
How do you evaluate a player when there is an injury? How long to keep them out, or what kind of rehab they need?
Well, it definitely always varies by the individual and by the injury. Some things they can be out a couple minutes, and then we can definitely get into more serious injuries where they're going to be out several months at a time. So there are a really a varied amount of times we have to use to do that, and the different types of rehab we do for each injury and mainly it's going to be exercises to try to help strengthen that area back up. Stretching is always a big part of it, and it's going to be specific to the individual and to the sport they play as well.
Sure.
So just a lot of different things we go through with that.
How did you get started in the athletic training area?
Well, actually, I played football in high school, and I had an athletic trainer when I was in high school, and I think a lot of people that go into athletic training kind of have that same path. They just kind of see that when they're in high school and like what the person does, and if you're a sports-minded person and you want to stay around it, and obviously I wasn't good enough to play in college or the NFL or anything like that, but definitely wanted to stay around sports and saw that as a great avenue to take, and it's worked out pretty well for me so far.
Where did you attend high school?
I'm actually from Hillsboro originally, and then I went to Wilmington College. And this is my 10th year as an athletic trainer, so I haven't strayed very far. I've kind of stayed close to home. One thing is I actually don't work for the high school. I work for Highland District Hospital in Hillsboro, and then it's a service we provide to all the high schools around here. So I don't work directly for the high school, but I'm still at the high school pretty much every day. Yeah. And I also work at White Oak High School as well. I'm not just kind of isolated to Hillsboro.
Yeah. Concussions now are a big issue with athletes, and how can, and it helps with coaches, how do you determine as far as how long the player may need to be out for a concussion? How do you detect first that there is a concussion, and then how long do you how can you get a sense on how long you keep that out of? Is that more of a doctor's thing, or is it more on you?
Well, it's kind of both right now. Obviously, that's the biggest topic in sports medicine, athletic training right now, and everybody hears about it at every level of sports. They're worrying about head injuries, and it's definitely a good thing. I'm really amazed how much it's evolved just since I've started working, the way we have to treat concussions now. As far as diagnosing it, there are just a multitude of ways. There is a specific set of tests that we use that just takes us through everything from just basic symptoms that the athlete has, and then we go into more complex things like that we're checking how their brain is functioning, memory tests, recall specific events, and then we even go into functional testing where we're checking their balance and reaction time and things like that. They've actually taken it out of our hands a little bit because, honestly now if a kid tells me he has a headache and they had any type of mechanism for a head injury, and they don't necessarily even have to have a blow to the head. Right. But if they simply tell me they have a headache, then we don't have any choice right now but to diagnose it as a concussion. Yeah. Now, they've actually made some state laws this year to determine how we have to treat concussions in high school and in youth sports. So any diagnosed concussion has to go to the physician now. So that's always our number one step, is they have to go to the doctor. And then once that doctor clears them, there's not a specific number of days that they have to sit right now with us through the hospital. We've set a protocol up excuse me, I'm sorry, where it's basically going to be 6 to 7 days before they're back to a game.
Okay.
And in those days, we do specific things with them, increasing their activity level each day until we get them back to full activity, and then making sure that they don't have any type of return of symptoms along those days. Most of the time, they say normal concussions resolve in 7 to 10 days. So that they're going to be out at least 6 or 7 days with us right now, and again, that goes. It doesn't start until that doctor releases them back to start practice.
When if a player would sustain a second and third concussion, is what transpires then? Do you kind of look at the situation as to how they're getting injured, or what do you do in that situation?
Well, they've kind of changed that a little bit as well. I know it used to be that if you had 2 concussions in a season, you were out at least a month, and then if you had maybe 3 in a season, you were out that season. And sometimes if you would receive 4, they might tell you they don't recommend you playing anymore at all in high school. But we don't really go by that anymore. It's more of just the symptoms and the 6 to 7 day return to play. We definitely, once you receive your first concussion or multiple concussions, we're going to monitor you a lot closer. Usually once you have multiple concussions, it does tend to take a little longer for you to recover from them after that.
What can be, of course, there's brain injuries and other things that. What are some of the long-term effects of concussions?
Well, it's going to depend on the age group. What we worry about the most in high school and younger is something called second impact syndrome. And that is actually a phenomenon that doctors can't explain why it happens right now, but it only happens in adolescence. And what that is if you receive a concussion and you don't let it heal properly, and then you receive a second concussion on top of that, there are serious consequences, and it's even resulted in death in athletes. And I can think of just 2 this fall that we've had football players die throughout the country from head injuries. Now, as you get older, that doesn't tend to be a problem. Older college and definitely in the pros, you don't have second impact syndrome. But then you get into things like memory loss, recurrent headaches, migraines. Some have had they get very sensitive to light and noise, things like that, and that can happen with your minor concussions as well. But if you can prolong the presence of those, the more serious it is, and as you get older.
Does concussions seem to be more prevalent in higher impact sports, obviously, like soccer and football and those sports?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I probably had more concussions this fall than I will the rest of the year. Yeah. They happen in other sports as well, but definitely I would say football and soccer are the 2 biggest ones that I see right now. Mm-hmm. There are even weird cases where we've had cross-country runners, fall on the course, maybe hit their head on a tree branch or something. And
that sounds like something that would happen to me. But yeah.
And I've even read one story where a cross-country runner ran into a deer on the course, and they received a concussion from that. So it can happen in any sport, and like I was saying before, it doesn't necessarily have to come from a blow to your head either.
No.
Just any type of force that's going to be hard enough to basically move your brain around inside your head. Mm-hmm. You can just fall on the seat, or you fall on your butt really hard, and and then the force just hitting the ground
jars your whole body.
Exactly.
Of course, there are many other injuries that you have to be concerned about as in your line of work. Knee and ankle injuries and those type of injuries often creep up.
Yeah, they're pretty much, I've seen any part of the body injured at this point. Right. There's just all kinds of things we deal with on a daily basis. Ultimately we don't like to be very busy because we don't want
Right.
kids to be injured all the time. I always say people like it when I don't have to work very hard.
Yeah.
But this day and age, it's pretty much inevitable. If you're playing sports, you're
Right.
probably going to have some type of injury.
And you get into, and I know it's not baseball season, but you get into kids that are playing baseball, and they may be a pitcher, and they throw a little too much, and they get a sore arm, and then they have to back off for a while.
Yeah, I'd say baseball and softball and in track, I guess our spring sports in general, we see a lot more of the overuse type injuries, is what we call them, compared to the acute or the contact type injuries. Generally, it's going to be from your kids that haven't done a whole lot prior to that season. I mean, maybe they
Right.
just sat around for the last 6 months sometimes. I don't think that's too big of a problem anymore because it seems like pretty much all kids are playing some sport year-round if they want to be successful in high school.
Yeah.
Another thing we see a little issue starting with is just that the kids tend to concentrate on one sport too much, and they're not getting a lot of cross-training. So if you're playing baseball all year, you're working the same muscles and doing the same actions all year, so that actually can tend to lead to some overuse injuries as well, where as the guys that or ladies that are playing baseball or softball, then maybe soccer and football in the fall, they're working different muscle groups and you're just having a better overall conditioning.
I think, like you kind of hinted at, athletes today, no matter whether you're playing football, baseball, soccer, most athletes today are training almost year-round.
Yeah. There's not a lot of break for them. It kind of discourages me a little bit because just finishing up with football and soccer and going into basketball and wrestling, kids hardly take a couple days off. I was almost forcing some guys to take 4 or 5 days off before they would go into wrestling or basketball or the ladies from soccer into basketball. But there's just not a lot of time for a break anymore. And especially the way that the state has the seasons set up right now. One starts before the last one's even over, and obviously Clinton Massey's going to find that out here in the next couple weeks. Whenever they would lose their playoff game, they're going to have basketball players that have to go right from football into basketball with no break. So.
Yeah, it's tough physically. Your body needs a chance to heal up at some point.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to see him take at least a week off in between sports, but like I said, it really hardly ever happens like that these days.
There's so much competition out there. You got to be ready for the next sport coming or the next situation.
Yeah, definitely. They just move right on into the next one and don't slow down. And even in the summer, most athletes now, or especially high school, they're doing some type of travel team or something like that all summer. So they just don't really take a lot of breaks.
One thing that I've seen, and you've seen this too over the years, is players with the advance in medicine are able to come back from, say, an MCL or an ACL injury or something like that quicker now because the surgeries are much less invasive.
Yeah, definitely. I think arthroscopic surgery was probably one of the biggest advances, in sports medicine. I can still remember, my dad talking about guys he played with in high school where they would have a knee surgery and their career would be over.
Yep.
And now obviously doesn't happen in high school, but guys can have a minor arthroscopic procedure and be back in a couple weeks.
Right.
But even severe injuries where, like, say you tear your ACL or something like that, which is probably one of the most significant knee injuries you can have. Even with that, you're going to be out maybe 5 to 6 months. Most of the time, it's going to be 6 months, but that's going to just vary by the athlete again. Whereas maybe 20 years ago, that could be a career ender or out for a year or longer.
What kind of rehab is normally involved when you rehab an injury? I know you probably oversee some rehab on like a rehab from an ACL or something. What's involved in rebuilding that knee?
Well, the biggest thing after a surgery, especially an ACL, is building up the muscles around that joint. because with ACL tears, for some reason your quad muscles really deteriorate after that surgery. So that's usually the number one thing that we try to build back up, and then also increasing the motion in their knee, trying to get them back to the full motion they had before the surgery. And I've actually had a couple football players that didn't adhere to the rehab very well, and I just had one playing this past fall that still can't straighten his knee out all the way, and luckily it didn't affect him too bad during the season, but it can definitely be some serious complications if you don't follow through with it, and if you want to be active.
If you don't get it rehabbed right, it can be a problem on down the road.
Oh yeah, definitely. It can lead to early arthritis and like I said, the lack of motion in your knee. I mean, it can get extremely stiff on you, and you won't be able to bend that knee as much as you did before, and it definitely can cause some complications.
I see once in a while you see players get a high ankle sprain, and how do you get through that?
Well, it's kind of it usually takes a lot longer to heal from a high ankle sprain than a low or a normal ankle sprain.
Okay.
I'm don't want to get into the science of it too much,
right.
But the big difference is with the high ankle sprain, it's kind of an injury to a ligament in between the two bones in our lower leg, and compared to really our true ankle joint. And I've actually seen high ankle sprains that require surgery to tighten them back up. But it's just the structures that are involved with that injury. They tend to take longer to heal than a normal ankle sprain, and they can be a lot more painful as well. So they definitely keep athletes out a lot longer.
Well, I think one of the keys, and I've been told this over and over, to keeping players from getting injured is how you warm up, how you get loosened up for a game, and that can be a key to preventing some injuries too.
Oh, definitely, and that's another topic that's changed quite a bit since I've started in this career. Used to before everybody would do what was called static stretching before you would play, where it would just be something like bending over, touching your toes, and holding it for 20 seconds.
Right.
But we really kind of back away from those type of stretches before you play. Now we want to do functional or active stretching. Mm-hmm. Where you're doing movements that you're going to do while you play as well.
Yep.
And we want to do the static stretching after we're done
right.
to cool down. And I've seen a lot of different ways the teams warm up, and every coach has kind of got his own way of thinking, and some definitely do a lot better job of that than others, but a good warm-up will definitely prevent a lot of injuries, especially, your muscle pulls, muscle strains, things like that.
Sure. Well, I think that is, like you say, has definitely changed. One of the things back in the 60s when I was playing athletics, they used to give us what they called salt tablets. And that was one of the nastiest things ever, take a salt tablet. But now it's just a matter of if players are getting leg cramps and stuff, it's just a matter of keeping them hydrated rather than giving them crazy salt tablets.
Yeah, exactly. Luckily, I haven't ever had to deal with salt tablets. I know that definitely used to be the thinking, but now, if with a proper diet and hydration, you're gonna get all those nutrients you need. The cramping is definitely preventable. I get a little frustrated with guys actually when they cramp, and it always seems like it's those early season games,
right.
Especially in the fall when it's hot. Those first couple football games, but guys and ladies, all athletes in general, they really can't drink enough.
Right.
I'll give one example. I know Matt Hodge, a football coach at Hillsboro. I give him a lot of credit because he actually makes guys carry a gallon jug with them during school, and he expects them to drink at least that gallon of water every day.
Right.
And he tells them on game days it should be at least 2.
Sure.
Because once you start cramping, you can't drink fast enough to replace everything you've lost.
Yeah, and on a lot of sidelines you see somebody carrying around jugs of Gatorade and bottled water and all that kind of stuff. So there's really no excuse to not get enough liquid and not enough water.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I'm sometimes I'm not very nice to some of the athletes that cramp. I mean, I'm pretty aggressive with them after they start to cramp because you really want to stretch them hard with that as well. It doesn't always feel very good to them, but
No.
you've got to stretch that cramp out, and then we've got to get the fluid in them as much as we can. But like I said, once you start to cramp, you're past the point of being able to keep them off, and you just can't drink fast enough.
Right. Well, I battle leg cramps from being diabetic and whatever, and just getting those liquids in your body and keeping a consistent diet of good liquids, like a Gatorade or something that has a good nutritional base to it.
Yeah, definitely. They say that, excuse me, everybody should be drinking at least 2 liters of water a day.
Right.
And obviously athletes are going to be sweating out a lot more fluid than that, so that they can't drink enough, really. And, as far as the Gatorade and Powerade and things like that, they work wonderful for that. I'm a lot bigger on using them before and after an activity, and whereas during the activity you kind of want to stick with water a little more because water digests a lot quicker than the Gatorade and things like that. But it's still just wonderful things to use for it.
Yeah, after a game, you need to replenish what you've used up in your body during a game, and I suppose electrolytes and things like that are key.
Yeah, definitely, and that's one reason. As far as summer goes, with any sport that's doing 2-a-day practices, they should be keeping weight charts.
Yep.
And we have to monitor how much weight the athletes are losing, because if they don't put on the weight they've lost before that second practice, we have to either restrict them or even hold them out sometimes, because it's just not safe for them to lose that much fluid and that much weight in a day and not replenish it.
You get in, say, early football practice, you get into those 90-degree days in full pads and uniform, and you're out there just sweat just pouring off of you. You're losing a lot of body weight and a lot of liquid.
Absolutely. I think they got a little spoiled this year with 2-a-days. It seemed to be pretty cool around here, but I've definitely had some years where I've had guys lose up to 10 pounds in a practice before, and they can just drop all kinds of weight, and it is all just water weight. So a lot of times we can just as long as they're getting enough fluid back in them, we can get that weight back on and get them back out for the second practice. Yeah,
you don't want a player losing a lot of weight all at once. That can lead to a lot of problems too.
Yeah, definitely. Probably heat exhaustion and heat stroke are the 2 biggest things we worry about there. Because if they lose too much fluid, they're not going to be able to cool themselves well enough, and they're not going to have the energy either to be able to practice effectively. And there's not a lot of point in being out there if you're not getting a lot accomplished. So.
We've seen players that have dropped in those hot practices because of not only physical exhaustion but dehydration and other things.
Yeah, definitely, and probably the number one story most people know is Corey Stringer, and that's been several years ago now, but that's an NFL player that died from a heat stroke. So it's not just a high school thing by any means. It's something that definitely has to be monitored very closely in all sports.
All right. Well, you've seen a lot of athletes, and what all other duties do you have besides White Oak and Hillsboro High School? You have an office at Highland District Hospital?
Yeah, we have a physical therapy and sports medicine office. It used to be in the hospital, but it's not anymore. Now we moved to a separate office off campus. But I also work in the hospital with orthopedic doctors during the day, so we basically can keep track of the athletes that we have see the doctor. So when they come in from all of our high schools, I'm there with the doctor. I know what's going on with the athletes. I can let the coaches know and explain things to their parents. When their parents are in there a lot better sometimes than the doctor does. And then also I work with 2 other athletic trainers that cover different high schools, and so I can call them and let them know what's going on with their athletes as well after they see the doctor. So that's probably my second biggest duty, I guess. And then we're also all CPR instructors, so we teach a lot of CPR classes. We teach all the hospital employees, and then all coaches in Ohio have to have a CPR card in order to coach. So we're usually teaching 5 or 6 classes every year for coaches around here too.
Are you usually on the sidelines for ball games?
Yeah, we're at most games that go on in Highland County. I know we cover every football game, basketball game. There are definitely some sports we don't get to as much. We try to cover as many soccer games as possible. Wrestling meets, but within there's volleyball. Not that volleyball players don't have injuries, but just not quite as high a rate. So we don't get to quite as many volleyball games, things like that. But we're usually somewhere just about every evening. And all of our coaches have our phone numbers, so that they know. They just call us up, and we'll get there definitely within the next day or so.
But before we get done, if you are a parent of a 3rd or 4th or 5th grader, what would you tell them as far as getting your child ready to play athletics to prevent injuries?
Well, I'd say at that age, it's still a little young to concentrate on it too much. I'm not big on weightlifting or anything like that young. Except maybe just body weight things, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, things like that. And just having a child be active is the biggest thing. Don't let them sit around and just play video games and be on the computer and things like that all the time. But probably at 3rd and 4th grade, that's really about all you want to be worrying about at that point. Then obviously as they get older, especially junior high, most people crank it up a little bit there in junior high. You can start some weightlifting, things like that. But I think just staying active in general is going to be good for them.
Well, Nick Veit, it has been an honor and a pleasure to have you with you, and I've learned a lot about athletic training, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure. I greatly appreciate having me.
All right, Nick Veit, who is an athletic trainer based out of Highland District Hospital, but works with a lot of schools in the Highland County area. We want to thank Jeremy Yankee also for being with us this morning from East Clinton Youth Football and Pee Wee Football. And this place is starting to get jumping in here, so we're going to wind up our broadcast and get out of here and hopefully enjoy some good food. Have you ever ate here before?
I actually have not. So
the fries especially are out of this world, and about anything you get, it's going to be unbelievable. So hopefully you're going to stay around and eat with us.
Yeah, I think I will.
Well, I think it's on the house, so that's the good part. But we thank you for being here. We thank everybody watching this morning on Global TV Radio, gtvr.net. And once again, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time here from the Rusty Keg Tavern, 1801 Columbus Avenue, Washington Courthouse, Ohio. And I think all these people in this patio must have come to see me and Nick and Jeremy. They surely didn't come to see Tom South. But anyway, that will wind up our broadcast this morning from the Rusty Keg Tavern in Washington Courthouse, Ohio. And have a great day, and go Bucks!